Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Welcome back to Legal Lounge. We are here today with an exciting guest to help us actually navigate divorce, not on the legal side, not necessarily even on the financial side, but more so as a divorce coach. So Andra, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here and be with you. As you said, I am a divorce coach. I'm also a trained mediator, and I'm collaboratively trained as well, which in an ideal world, right, we would all be having collaborative divorces. So at least I have the training to help move us in that direction whenever possible. My background is in communications, and I work with clients on two fronts usually. The logistics side, helping them get organized and navigate the challenges of the process, what is coming up next and what does that look like, and getting prepared for things like mediation, parenting plans, that kind of thing. And then also, I spend a good amount of time helping clients navigate the emotional component of divorce. We all know that that's such a huge part of the process, and pretending that we don't need support through that, or, choosing not to go there because it's tough, which it absolutely is, usually has some challenging consequences. So I really like to help clients manage it, dive in, and get the support that we all deserve in what is absolutely one of life's hardest transitions.
I totally agree with that statement. And I honestly feel that when the emotional piece is not addressed, then it creates a hurdle or maybe even a stopping point where you cannot move forward in the negotiation, the mediation, or the litigation process. So it really is important for individuals going through separation, divorce, or really any family law dispute to have someone in their corner to help them work through the emotional parts of the process.
I couldn't agree more. It shows up in all kinds of ways when you don't address it, right?
Yeah.
It can show up as positional thinking, right? Either I'm never going to win, or I have to win at all costs, or I might as well just quit the whole thing. It shows up in anxiety, not getting enough sleep at night, not being able to make clear decisions, as anger that's maybe misdirected to people who you're not actually angry at, all kinds of ways. So I totally agree. And it's so helpful when the attorneys are on board with that, so that we can pause, right, and really address those challenges that we're facing.
It's funny you say that, because that's one thing I try to train my team on, is the emotional aspects, the emotional intelligence aspects, because some of my team members will be like, well, why are they getting stuck on this? Why aren't they responding to our emails? Why aren't they, meaning our clients, wanting to move the case forward? And 9 times out of 10, I'm like, it's nothing about what we're doing. It's actually about that emotional connection. It could be that they don't actually want to completely sever ties with the opposing party. And that's kind of understandable, especially if they've been with the opposing party for years, if not decades, in a very intimate marital relationship, or,
when a person reflects and realizes, oh, that other party will forever be the parent of the children we share. And so we sometimes have to remind ourselves it's not just about getting us the past year's worth of bank statements and pay stubs. It's actually about that very real connection between human beings that could have that emotional toll.
It triggers people, right? Sometimes those things are just triggering, finances or a particular email about an event that occurred or whatever. It just, you don't know what's occurring on the other side of that. And that causes people to just shut down or over respond or not respond at all. It's usually, to your point, has an emotional connection.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And so that brings us to one of our points that we wanted to bring up was, what do we do when we have a client or working with individuals that are more focused on the quote unquote misbehavior of the opposing party versus focusing on what's best for the children?
It's so understandable. And I tell this to my clients a lot. Oftentimes they're shocked, first of all, right? Who is this person I thought I knew and what kind of choices are they making? And I think people get hung up, and I bet you see this all the time in your role, on the unfairness of it, right? You hear that all the time. And that's really challenging, right? Because we know that it isn't fair. That's absolutely valid. But that's not also what's going to move the needle from a legal standpoint, right? That doesn't always matter so much in terms of how the case gets handled. So there's this disparity that I find for clients between their stress and worry about what's fair and their fixation on what should be, they believe, done about it. And what realistically is possible from a legal standpoint. So when they are upset, oftentimes about their ex or soon-to-be ex's behavior, often it's rooted in that place of fairness or unfairness. And so what I try to do from a coaching standpoint is validate the fact that they're right. It is unfair. There's no doubt about it. This process is not for the faint of heart, and it is tough, and it is not fair. It is not inherently fair. That said, they have a good team. They have a good, smart brain in their head. They love their kid. So knowing those things, let's prioritize what really matters. Even if it's not going to be as fair as they would like, there are other good choices that they can make to improve the process. So I find that, when somebody's behaving poorly, and I can give you an example. I have a client right now whose husband of 10 years, and they have a 7-year-old daughter, just moved out. And within a week was living with somebody else. She's wearing a big ring and using his last name. They're staging holiday photos. I mean, she's completely traumatized. And who would blame her? It's over the top, right? In all kinds of ways, and so triggering and upsetting. And it's not fair by any stretch. And she's single parenting now, and really overwhelmed and really struggling. In lots of ways. And she wanted to be able to explain her ex's absence to their daughter. And she wanted to be able to explain it in this way of, well, I can explain it to her kind of like bullying happens at school for her. Like, your friend such and such might not be nice to you. And that's what's happening here. Dad's not being nice to me. And we had to have a really honest conversation that line of explanation serves her, but it doesn't serve her daughter. And that a 7-year-old does not differentiate between how an adult is treating, how an adult that she loves can treat other people that he loves that way, but still love her and feel safe. So our approach changed to, what you need to tell her is that there are some adult things happening. You don't necessarily have all the answers, but you do know that he loves her. He will always love her. She is safe and secure regardless. And that she's sorry that this is a tough time for everybody, but
Mhm.
mom and dad both adore her, and that will never change.
Yeah.
Because the underlying issue is that she wants to know that she's safe and secure.
Yeah.
Right? She's worried about her mom. She's worried about her dad. She's worried about this change. She's, hyper attentive to all the things that are occurring.
Yeah. And she may also be blaming herself as the child for some of the
Exactly.
occurrences.
That's
right?
such a good
I'm
point.
not
Yes.
doing enough, and my daddy's not paying
Right.
enough attention to me. And maybe even with this other third party that just showed up in the picture, the child may feel even more alone or disconnected. And so you
Yeah.
want to, I mean, both parties really should, but especially if we only have control over ourselves, we need to take it upon ourselves to make sure this child knows that she's loved.
Exactly. And she does not need to know details, as tempting as it is from a parental standpoint to throw some shade on the other parent.
Yeah.
It just doesn't ever serve,
Yeah.
especially a child at age 7.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a similar story actually, where I had a client, I represented the father and the mother had cheated. And it was a really sad situation because the affair was connected to some of the individuals with the children, like at school. And, there came a point where my client wanted to explain to one of the kids that, part of the frustration and the animosity that this child is experiencing is because mom cheated. And, in a similar fashion to your example with your client, I had to sit with my client. I said, no, let's dial it back. To be brutally honest, and she was younger teen years, but this young teenager, yes, may think it's wrong that her mom cheated, of course. But on the flip side, she's a lot more concerned about her teenage affairs, her school, her dance, her I think she might have been going to some dance or maybe prom. And I had to remind him that it's not about you and your marriage that really matters to this kid. What matters to this kid are her needs, her desires, and knowing that both parents are there for her and love her regardless.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I think that the reality is that every kid, and especially teenagers, as we all know, right, are hyper focused on themselves. And as they get to be, that's part of being a teenager, that's part of being a kid, is that, we want to give our kids the luxury of that kind of thinking, right? We want them to be good people, but they get to be kids.
Yes.
And, to help them be kids as long as possible, part of our job as the adults and the people who are helping those in this divorce transition to navigate it need to remind them that sharing your pain in that way with the kids isn't the right approach, because there are people who are appropriate to talk to about that, and there are people who aren't, and your kids are in the no-go category.
Yes. Talk to a friend, talk to a therapist,
talk to a therapist, a coach,
a divorce coach. Yes. Not your kids.
Not your kids.
So that actually brings us to another point is, there are times when clients will come to me and they will want to tell the kids, the reason I don't have money to take you out to dinner or to buy you that new video game is because the opposing party won't give me money, which then brings the child into this money discussion or money concerns. And I'm sure you see it as well, where money is a very sensitive topic. And yes, it's one thing to be honest with your child that, hey, we can't afford that toy or that activity. It's another thing to lay blame on the opposing party. So what
big difference, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Big difference.
It's funny. I have this situation going on right now with clients, and one parent is saying to kids like, "Oh, I'm going to have to go sell your Xbox or your 3D printer because, your dad's not giving us money. First of all, it's just so wrong on so many levels. But
Yeah.
Talk about putting the kids in the middle and creating anxiety for them. The idea that they might not have enough of what they need, groceries, food, gas to go to school, whatever. It's one thing if that's already a real situation for them, but to add a layer of anxiety unnecessarily and to disparage the other parent while doing it is so inappropriate during this process and directly harms the kids. I mean, I know that's a strong statement, but it really does when you're placing this level of stress on them in addition to what is already there from school and life and friends and the divorce, because kids are more aware than we ever give them credit for about what's going on in a family system. And you add that layer, we can either choose at these points, right, to reassure them or to add stress. Why would we put another big rock in their backpack that they carry around all day?
That's a great visual. I
Right?
agree 100%. Yes.
It's just another big, okay, we'll take stress of money. We'll take stress of one parent not living with us. We'll take transitions. We'll take, how heavy do you want that thing to be?
And go one step further, a lot of children, because they want to keep the peace, they want to, make everyone happy in a way, most often, they may start sacrificing themselves, right? If they hear, oh, mom told me we might have to sell my Xbox, who knows? They might go and try to sell their Xbox at
That's
school.
right.
And you're like, and maybe that, first off, that's not a concern for the child to have. Definitely don't want the child to be selling,
No.
a game console at school and asking for money. And just that very adult stressor being put on that child's shoulders is just unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. That's exactly right. And it's parentifying kids and a lot of, right. They don't need adult level worries like that.
No.
And so that's a big one. And we see it a lot in the divorce process because it is financially stressful for everybody, but choosing to keep, again, those financial issues as adult issues and not kid issues is really important.
And go one step further, even if there is a struggle, even if, the child does see the environment go from eating out all the time to rice and beans most nights. At the end of the day, the children will absorb what's going on. They'll know, they'll get the feeling, they feel the tension as well as the ease in the environment. But if one parent is there saying, hey, no matter what, regardless of what we're eating, we'll get through this, then you're not only supporting that child, but you're building resilience in that child as well.
100%. Yes. And that's the choice that the adults need to be aware of and active in as they look at each decision. When that decision comes up, how am I going to handle this? I hope, and that's part of what I really work with people on, is pausing, right? I hope people will pause and examine their choices.
Yeah.
So that they can say, I'm moving toward the person that I want to be. I'm giving my kid the support and love and security that they need during this tough time, even when it's hard. Because it is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And it will always be hard, but how you respond to those challenges is what then helps define the environment that you're raising your children in. And to your earlier point, do we want an environment that's filled with anxiety and another rock in the backpack? Or do we want to create an environment of emotional awareness and safety for that child, as well as that fortitude that, hey, life has challenges. We're in this together. You're loved by both parents, and we're going to get through this.
Oh, yes, exactly. And the other thing that I think is so important about what you just said is that a lot of people are afraid to actually just have that conversation with their kids.
Oh,
right?
yes.
And I love what you just said. And I think that there doesn't need to be the fear that we can't say those things, right?
Mhm.
It's okay for kids to see us grapple with challenges, right? That's life. The question isn't whether they're going to be those challenges, it's how we handle them, right?
Yeah.
So to say, yep, this is a tough time, but we're going to get through it because we're strong and we can. And our life might not look exactly the same, but what will stay the same is how we feel about each other. I'm always going to be your mom or your dad, and I'm always going to be here for you, and I adore you, and that will never change. So it doesn't matter whether we live in this apartment or that house or a farmhouse or anything else. That is consistent.
Yeah.
And if we can give our kids the gift of those conversations, it eases stress, right?
Yep.
Because they do sense it. They do sense the change. They do sense the up and down. So acknowledging it with strength and love is a gift, I think.
I agree. I agree 110%.
Building relationships is a natural part of life. But how does the law affect those relationships? Do you want to marry your significant other, but have cold feet from the many divorce horror stories out there? Are you preparing for a custody battle against your ex? That is where Modern Legal comes in. We offer education and knowledge about the law when it affects the relationships near and dear to your heart. To learn more about how family law affects your family, book a consultation with an attorney of our Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal Services at modernlegalnc.com.
So another curveball that you and I have both witnessed are the introduction of new romantic interests.
That's a big one.
Especially when there are kids involved too. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about what you've seen and how clients can better respond to those situations.
This one is so complicated, right? And I would say that there isn't exactly a right way to do this necessarily, right? There are some common, maybe wrong ways, but with good intention, there are lots of right options.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is for parents to think about what fits my particular situation. What kind of worries might my child have about this scenario? So if they're worried about one parent having an inappropriate relationship, right? It might age-wise or relationship to their family for some reason. That's one consideration. Somebody else might not want to introduce someone to the kids until they know that they are the person, that they're going to make a long-term commitment, whatever that means for them. But in general, to think about it first from what does my child need to know about this? And how might they feel about it? And how can I address that? What kind of a situation, what kind of a conversation can I open up so that we can have a realistic and honest discussion where they're allowed to voice some thoughts? I'm not forcing it down their throat. And I'm also not saying I'm going to put my whole entire life on hold forever. So that and say I'm never going to have another relationship. There is some thoughtful approaches that can work in that sweet spot in there that is hard, right? Really thinking about what works for your child, depending on the age, depending on how long you've been separated. There are all kinds of variables. But I would say that for parents thinking about this, and honestly, I hope they are. Everybody deserves to be happy and go live a life they enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about, how do I structure this in a way that works for our family is really the best question.
It's interesting you say that, because I do think that when individuals get through the chapter of separation and divorce and they're on the other side, probably 9 times out of 10, they'll agree with you that, everyone deserves to find happiness and find a person that they want to spend maybe at least the next chapter, if not the rest of their life with. However, I can definitely see some of my clients, especially that are in the thick of it right now, saying, no, they don't deserve happiness. I'm not happy. They ruined our relationship.
Yeah.
And I, I try to take those comments. I mean, they're serious comments, right? Because there is a lot of pain. There is a form of grief that everyone who's going through the divorce process is experiencing. I like to tell individuals, if you're looking to try to win in a divorce case, you can't, because you've already lost. Why? Because we have a failed relationship. I don't, regardless of what people believe, I honest to God don't believe anyone goes on their wedding day to say I do, to celebrate with their loved ones, thinking that they're going to get divorced. I really don't.
I agree with you.
So with that considered, we have to remember that there is that grief factor that will be very, it'll be very raw during the process. And so we want to remember and self-reflect and be self-aware that, okay, this is part of this chapter. My pain is part of this chapter, but that doesn't negate, what you said a moment ago, where at the end of the day, we do all deserve happiness at some point. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow for the opposing party, but at some point.
Well, and your point is a good one, that there are two different conversations, that we're talking about here, right? One is with your kids about your own, choices to start dating again, or if there's somebody in your life. The other is about how you talk to your kids about their other parents, person in their life. And if, especially to your point, if that's the reason maybe that the marriage broke up, that can be an extraordinarily volatile, triggering discussion, because the one parent can be just angry, grieving, bitter. It's hard to find the best side of ourselves when we're talking in that kind of a context, right? We've all seen that. And one of the things I hear, I bet you do too, is no, my kid needs to know who their other parent is, right? They need to know that. My response to that is no, they do not.
Simply put, no.
Simply put, no. And I'll tell you why. There are studies that show that kids see themselves in both parents. And when you criticize the other parent, that it's also, that goes to their view of themselves. They actually take that personally too. And none of us as parents, and I really believe this also, we don't want to criticize our kids. We would never want that. But what we are looking for perhaps in that moment is sort of a misguided attempt at empathy and alliance with our child, right? About what the other parent has done. Understandable in terms of where it's coming from. But when you're actually making the choice of how to talk about the other parent, remember how kids see themselves in that other parent. And remember that you have an opportunity to be the safe space where your kids come to talk about whatever it is that's on their mind, or you can create a silo where they're worried about upsetting you. They're worried about burdening you. They don't want to tell you something because they're worried about the reaction that you might have. And when you start to show that you are angry and can't, respond in a healthy way to something about the other parent, they just won't talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And then they're a little bit isolated, and we don't want that for our kids.
Yeah.
We always want to be the safe place where they come to have the conversations. And that can be a really powerful motivator for people when they're stuck in that place of like, oh, I really want to know, is Dad's girlfriend in town this weekend? Or, who did they go out to dinner with? But those questions, will serve to put your kid in the middle in a way that has consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes to, against some of our comments about trying to create a safe space for the child.
Right.
And if you create an environment that isn't safe all the way around, even for the issues that make you personally uncomfortable, then you're not doing what's best really for your kid.
Yep. And that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that then brings us to our last thing. I feel like we could talk all night, not gonna lie. We could talk forever on all of this. But that comes to our point on, thinking that we know what the other party or the other parent or the ex-spouse deserves or doesn't deserve. And it's interesting because I understand when my clients say, hey, I know the opposing party. I'll give it to them. Yeah, you're going to know the opposing party better than I ever will, right? I haven't slept with them. I didn't marry them. I didn't have a child with them. But on the flip side, there is the reality that at some point, that person that you were married to or you did have a child with, they too are going to change. They too are going to be a different person at some point. And so it gets kind of sticky when you believe you know what they deserve or don't deserve.
Yeah, it does. And I think this is really important. And it goes back to something else that you said, which is, we know we can't control other people, right? And when we let go of our need to enforce that, what's right, what isn't on other people, it's freeing in a lot of senses. And it also helps you focus on the things that really matter, which is on your own well-being and what you deserve.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, whether or not somebody deserves something, even though they've made bad choices, right? Perhaps they probably have, right? Nobody's perfect, but some people really have made poor choices in this divorce process. There's no doubt about it.
Sure.
And it's understandable that the opposing party feels they don't deserve something. But what I like to remind people is that isn't a blank check then for them to act like that opposing party, right?
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable with that behavior, differentiate yourself as cleanly and, broadly as possible, right? In as big of a way as you can. If they're behaving poorly, you behave amazing because that's who you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's who you want your kids to see. You don't want your kids to see the role model of that poor behavior. And you don't condone it and you don't believe in it. So separate yourself and act in a way that you're proud of, not because they deserve anything, but because you want to feel good about your choices and you deserve the best. You deserve to be the person that you want to be. And every time that you face a decision point and you choose the high road, it builds a new muscle, if you will, right? It builds a new muscle. It's just like working out, right? Those little tears, those hard things, they're not that fun while you're doing it, but you're stronger on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's where you get the strength. You see that you can do it. You see the positive benefits. One choice at a time. I always say that to clients, just one choice at a time. You don't have to decide, you're going to change your whole life. That's a lot to take on, right?
Yeah.
One choice at a time. Make the decision that you feel is best for yourself and your family, and do it with integrity and love, and let go of outcome as much as possible, and see what happens. And then do it again the next time.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. Wow. I think that's an amazing point, especially if a listener is in the thick of it now. Hopefully they can not only learn from that point, but also our whole conversation that we've had. Because if you can create that stable environment and you can rise above, I mean, not only will your children, but really everyone around you will see that you're growing stronger and you come out on the other side stronger, and more independent, more empowered, and ready to really, change face and change a future that may have not otherwise been there, especially if we can let go of that animosity and those negative thoughts. So.
Yeah, because the other person may not even know you're walking around with it, right?
Exactly.
It just hurts you. And so, for anybody who's listening who goes, yeah, that's all really nice. She has no idea how bad this is. And I would just like to say that I do. I went through it myself. I got divorced after 20 years of marriage. I have twins that were 14 at the time. And it's why I pivoted to do the work that I do now, because I did decide to go through this in a way that I could feel good about and be a model for my kids in a way that I was happy about. And that does not mean I didn't make mistakes. I made plenty, believe me,
Sure.
plenty. But I also know that my intention was solid, right? And that I could look at myself at the end and say, I really, really did the best I could. And that doesn't mean it was perfect, but I tried really, really hard. And I know how hard it is. And I have a tremendous amount of empathy for anybody who's in this. And that's why I'm here, because I think everybody deserves emotional support through this really, really difficult time. And I hope those of you who are listening, who are in the thick of it, like you said, and feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and discouraged, will just give yourself pause, treat yourself gently, and realize that you do deserve to come out better on the other side. That's what I call my program, Better Than Before Divorce, for that reason, because it is possible. And I know it might not feel like it today, but I believe it. Everybody has a life out there they deserve. And I encourage and really just root for everybody who's out there trying to do that on their own. It's hard, and I give them so much credit.
Well, thank you. Oh my goodness, that was wonderful. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. If the listener wants to contact you or find you, where are some places they can find you?
Yeah. So my website is betterthanbeforedivorce.com. And there's all kinds of ways to get in touch with me there. I'm on Instagram also. And I think I'll send you those so you can share them. But I'm Instagram, and I'm on all of them, actually, YouTube and Facebook and TikTok even. So all the things.
Awesome.
I admit that I don't go on and look at a lot of the other stuff, but my stuff is on there.
Awesome.
So if someone wants to find it, hopefully they can. And I would be so happy to talk to anybody who is interested in learning more.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope to see you again next time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com, or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.